Welcome to WAM, everybody. We're here with episode 3. I'm Nolan.
I'm Nick.
And we're going to be talking about the best superhero movie to ever come out, Batman and Robin.
This was a fantastic movie.
I loved watching this movie.
Right after we finished watching the movie, we tried to look up how much it actually made, and it said it was the worst, one of the worst movies ever made.
I mean, Wikipedia legitimately said, I was just looking up the rates, and just at the bottom it said, this is considered one of the worst movies ever. I'm just like, it's not great as a, like, real person movie.
As a film, it's
but
not
as
good.
As a time capsule of like the 90s, as like an ironic comedy, as like a fun action thing, it's a lot of fun. But I can tell that somebody went into this, and this was around the time that Top Gun came out, I think. Imagine going from Top Gun to Batman and Robin.
Dude, I think first we can start off with, I guess the suits are pretty important. The nipple suits primarily.
This isn't the first nipple suit, though.
Is it not?
Val Kilmer in Batman Forever, I think, also had.
Did he have a nipple suit?
I think he also had nipples. And I think that's why they kept up the trend, and that's why in this movie you have a line from Poison Ivy where she goes up to, what was it, either Batman or Robin, because she's hitting on both during this. But she goes, oh, I love an atomically correct spandex suit or whatever. It was
so funny, yeah. It's just totally poking fun at the whole movie. And at the beginning, they have those really tight, like, zoom-ins on Batman's, like, cheeks and Robin, and they're in their, like, sack and everything. It's just not, their bulge, I guess.
Yeah,
but
their bulge, the butt, the abs, and then the face. I love the suits. They're so horrible.
I think the suits were really cool. I think this whole movie feels and looks like it was just a comic book that was just immediately made into like a movie without
I get it.
Like a lot done.
I will agree if this was like simply a comic book. If they did this exact same story in a comic book, it would feel like, yeah, that's something that would get written in the 90s.
But yeah, that fits. But this the writing definitely wasn't great. I think Batman said hold on maybe like 24 times.
It was hang on.
Hang on. I'm sorry. Yeah. Hang on. And at the end, the scientists were falling off and think, hang on. And then he was going to grapple them up. Hang on.
Is it always a pun? Because it always seems like just like hold your horses. Like, okay, this is going to take a little bit of time. But it's always when people are hanging on to something.
I don't know if that was a pun. I think he was just saying hang on.
It's just a line that
was
just keeps...
Was it a pun?
I don't know.
So much of this movie was just puns. I couldn't tell you what was it. Every time Mr. Freeze spoke, he couldn't say anything without making a cold joke. And then whenever he started attacking the party, just chew.
Cool out, man.
So what do you think back to the comic book thing with the set design? What do you think about the set design through the movie?
We were talking about this so much during it. Each time they show a new location, it has to have some sort of like giant marble statue attached to it. It's all over Gotham. Everything feels, well, understandably very gothic, maybe a little bit of Art Deco in it. And then there's these statues attached to everything in such a dramatic way. It feels like they saw Tim Burton's Batman Gotham, and they thought, man, that's really cool and colorful. What if we did that, but we gave the set designer an unlimited pass to like a museum and like 2 pounds of crack?
With the statues, they just kept getting bigger. It was like there was like statues outside of like Wayne's house. There were horses, and then there were like some like normal city statues. There was one that was just like a guy holding two like lamps. It was just two balls in his hand, and then the observatory is just this
was being
titan.
held out by a giant man. Don't forget the giant dude that they went down when they were like on the Batmobile and the Robin bike. That they like so big that you could slide down one of its fingers.
Yeah, the finger was at least one Batmobile wide. They're pretty huge.
Gigantic, man.
And he also just cuts off. So through this movie, there's a whole dynamic with Batman and Robin where Batman doesn't like keeps getting in Robin's way when he thinks he's gonna like get in trouble or die or whatever, and Robin's like, "Stop treating me like a kid." And so that's like a whole thing. And so he almost kills Robin by just turning off his bike when they're chasing Mr. Freeze on one of those huge statues. And he like almost dies. He's like 2 feet from the edge of the finger.
I'm going to protect Robin by making sure he doesn't take this risky jump that he could fail at. Instead, I'm going to stop his engine while going down basically a cliff of a man's arm, and he's going to have to slide his body against concrete as he's going down.
Not the brightest.
I mean, we see this dynamic a lot with Batman and Robin, where it's like, it's more of a battle of he doesn't want to be treated like a kid. He wants to be trusted by Batman. And that works if this was sort of like a father-son connection. And you heard me get really pissed at this when they finally trust each other. Batman like looks over the Robin and says, "You're like a brother to me." What are you talking about?
Yeah, they don't have the father-son. They don't have the father-son dynamic like at all. Even in the beginning, Alfred. There's a point earlier on where Alfred and Barbara are talking, and Alfred is like, he's like, I've had the privilege to call these two men son for years. So like he treats Dick like a son.
Yeah.
Batman treats Dick like a son. And
but
then
it's
it's like a brother thing. And at some point, Dick kind of tells a little bit of his backstory. Like
he brings up the Flying Graysons.
Yeah, but it's just
little bit.
It's a passing remark, and then he says like one more word with circus in it, like 2 sentences later, and that's it. That's all we ever hear.
That is a big thing for it. If you're going to have Robin be in theaters the first time since like Adam West's Batman, it might help if you explain who he is. Like there were 3 Batman movies, 2 Michael Keaton's and then 1 Val Kilmer before this. And then this is the 4th one in that. They're all sort of sequels to each other, I guess.
They're like spiritual successor kind of deals,
yeah.
It feels like.
But at no point was Robin mentioned. So if you're going to have it, you need to reference like, oh yeah, here he is. I brought him from the Flying Graysons. He's been dying. No, his parents died.
Yeah, I guess his parents did die because they didn't even say anything.
They didn't say
it's just dude. If Robin in this movie was just a guy that was like he was just like hired temporarily, it still would have worked because we don't know anything.
We don't know anything.
I don't want a full I don't want a whole backstory and a whole section where it's like we see Batman like bringing Dick Grayson into his house, but I just want to know something. Him looking at a picture of his parents like sad. Something, but we don't know anything, and so it's literally we're dropped immediately into the relationship between Batman and Robin when we have no idea who Robin is besides it's Batman's sidekick.
It's weird that we're supposed to think multiple things about this Robin. We're supposed to think that he's been with him a long time, at least from the context of he looks older, he has all of his like bikes and stuff there, but at the same time we're supposed to believe that Batman doesn't trust him at all and they haven't built any sort of strong connection to each other. And he's supposed to be a grown man who also just lives in this house, I guess. But, like, wouldn't that make it a son dynamic?
Because Dick Grayson, isn't Dick Grayson just like it was an orphan that Batman adopts?
He gets him at, like, 9 years old in the comics.
Yeah, so then like I said, I don't want the whole backstory, but just, like, there's nothing. We don't know who this man is.
I mean, let's not act as if this is, like, the best, adaptation of these characters. Like, let's look at Barbara. That's true. Who's obviously Batgirl in the comics, Barbara Gordon's daughter, but in this is Alfred Pennyworth's niece?
Yeah, niece. Yeah, it's Alfred's is her like uncle, and she came in from England and she goes to Oxford.
Yeah, her background, of course, being her parents died, and then she went to Oxford, and then she got really into street racing. And then she got kicked out of Oxford for street racing, so she made a lot of money, which is ultimately going to the fact that, which is a major plot point, Alfred is dying of McGregor's syndrome.
That's what it was, because she wanted to just kind of like take him away, and she didn't like the idea of Alfred just being a butler.
Yeah.
And like serving.
Which is never brought up again after she goes ham on it.
Yeah, I mean it's a valid point, but they never touch on it again. They just go full on Alfred's dying. And then Bruce, whenever Robin finds out, Bruce is just like, I know. And that's it. And it's just, okay,
it's not
wow.
It's not like Batman's like, I will use my billions of dollars to find a cure for this, as the only father figure I've really ever had in my life is dying. It's more like, well, he doesn't like to talk about it.
Yeah, he's old. Like, what is that? He doesn't... He doesn't care. So in this movie, I think what I guess the villains should be next.
There's obviously three major villains that are through this. There's Arnold, who is who plays Mr. Freeze, and that has to be one of the most notable things of the movie. That's what people meme out of it all the time.
Yeah, Arnold. I think Arnold was definitely. I don't want to say he carried the movie, but when Arnold is on screen versus like Poison Ivy or Bane, I was much more entertained.
Yes,
just because he was constantly making puns, which was. It was okay, I guess. It was pretty goofy.
It was bad.
But he was always doing something. Like, he had those bombs. He was trying to freeze the city. He was
he had a giant sled he went on. He had a giant, bulldozer that he would go onto. He had a rocket ship at the beginning.
Yeah, it was like extreme stuff versus Poison Ivy. She was still in, like, Little Leagues, kind of. She just backpacked off of Mr. Freeze at the end.
Poison Ivy was I hated her in this, I will say.
Really? Why?
I think the biggest part for me is I think they wasted Uma Thurman in the role. And also, this is very me nitpicking, but did you ever see every time she's talking, it sounds like it's ADR? Like it was recorded later?
It doesn't always seem perfect, but I think it's just because of how like eccentric she was making all of her movements and everything. Because it was she was trying to be very like exotic, I guess, with all of her movements immediately after she was... whatever, dumped with venom and poison and stuff by the doctor. This doctor, he goes like what was her original name before
she was Pamela Isley.
Yeah, Dr. Pamela was making all this stuff to make plants fight back so that they wouldn't get killed by humanity, I guess.
Yeah, she was trying to make them infused with snake DNA for some reason.
Rattlesnake, and she's like, "Drats, my rattlesnake experiment failed," is like the first thing we hear from her. And then she tries to go find out what's happening, discovers Bad Doctor with Bane using her venom and everything. Stuff goes bad. The doctor tries to, like, come on to her. She refuses, and he's just like, well, I'm sad you said no, but since I can't handle rejection very well, you'll have to die. And then he just and pushes her into, like,
into a vat. And that, like, sort of, she's like, ah! Yeah. And then the floor just dissolves with her, and she falls into a giant pit.
She falls into a purple hole that appears from the ground.
And when we come back to him, he's on the phone with some, like, leader of a foreign country saying, yes, I will sell you Bane, and you will have the ultimate fighter with you. He calls him, like, your ruthlessness?
Yeah, your ruthlessness.
What, like, Saudi king wants to be called that?
I mean, dude, I guess if he wants to, I wouldn't say no. Like, if he wants to be called your ruthlessness, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, sure, that's me.
Whatever, man.
And then while he's on the phone, and you kept yelling at the screen, hang up
because he was still on the phone.
He was still on the phone as Poison Ivy steps up from the ground and starts doing, like, a magical dance. And at one point, she's holding herself up like Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's very resurrection-y, like, thing happening.
Oh, yeah, that might explain why they did that. I'm stupid.
But it's just... through the whole movie, her entire character is just that, like, sauntry, exotic, whatever...
Yeah.
Man-eater kind of personality.
Along with, I don't like... people, I like plants, but like the biggest thing is, like, I think the best way to show that is to highlight ruthlessness of, like, people towards plants. That never happens. There's the one point where she goes up to Bruce Wayne and she's like, you are putting carbon dioxide in the air and you're putting bad coolants into the food. And then Bruce Wayne just says, yeah, but if I didn't, millions would die. And she's like, okay, cool, let's do that.
She's like, yeah, whatever. And then she walks away, and
everybody just sort of, like, laughs it off, like, oh, it's just another eco-goon or something.
And then after that scene, they set up this thing where, like, they're gonna go... Batman's selling off the Wayne diamonds to hopefully lure Mr. Freeze.
Who is fueled by diamonds.
Somehow. His suit uses diamond lasers that keep him at 0, I guess.
Which is, I think... Oh, I mean, obviously that makes a lot of sense. Because when you need diamonds to make a laser, obviously the diamond just disintegrates.
It just eats the diamond, yeah. And also, you think he gets mad if they rob, like, jewelry stores and it's all, like, cubic zirconium? It's, like, all just fake diamonds. He just gets really pissed. Or does it like just not run as good?
For making fake products, your deals are cold.
What?
Something like that.
Is it is it like a diesel gas kind of thing, or is it like premium or just like regular unleaded kind of thing? I don't.
The synthetic stuff doesn't work.
Yeah,
for him.
I want to know, would it break his machine? And then
You just see him like at a store, just like, what are the specs on this? Are they clear? Are they blurry?
he probably would be he'd be a diamond expert. He would just have to, I guess.
Yeah, I guess he would have to. Yeah.
But so at that scene where they're trying to auction off the diamonds, Poison Ivy comes back in a monkey suit and she starts dancing at the top.
We lost our minds.
Dude, it was she like comes, everyone, they're like auctioning off the thing. People are like $5,000 for that hot girl up there.
Yeah, just like a date with a woman, which is big at charities.
Sure. And then she just gets up on this like just thing where everyone can see her and just starts dancing in the big monkey costume.
And everyone just turns around, including Batman and Robin, standing there
in just complete
looking
awe.
so dumb.
They're just, oh my god, just dumbstruck. And this is before she even takes off the monkey mask. They're just looking at this ape dancing, and they're like, oh my god.
Okay, the costumes, the normal costumes are good. The secondary costumes are better. Do you remember how hard we laughed when we saw Bane in a trench coat and a fedora riding around in like a taxi, bringing around Poison Ivy?
He's a little driver.
And he stayed in that costume for a lot of the movie.
For a majority of it.
He was also in a monkey costume too.
In the monkey costume. He just showed up at the end of that scene. He just took the mask off and like, oh, Bane's here. Yeah. Oh, yeah, forgot about that.
They did Bane. Should I say, I don't know if this is better than The Dark Knight Rises, but it resembles Bane more.
See, I don't... Oh, no, now I'm remembering. Yeah, I don't like The Dark Knight Bane because it doesn't... It's not like a monster. Like, that's what... Whenever I think of Bane, I think of like that. Like a huge, grotesque, like, veins popping out of his arm, green fluid guy.
I think this really gets down, like, the visual stylization of Bane. It shows off the Venom aspect of him. It shows off the buff aspects. I think maybe Christopher Nolan's Bane shows the more intelligent part of Bane, the sort of warlord and like I guess gang leader that he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
If we got something in between that, we would have something that people recognize, or not most people, but just like the people who
Nerds.
spend $5,000 on comics say, that's my Bane. That's my Bane. But you sort of have to have them separated, I guess, for the general audience. Because you can either be a like super roided brute, or you can be, I don't know, Tom Hardy, who's really against Wall Street.
Like, I don't... The only way they ever have that, too, is if the smart guy gets strong at the very end. Like, that's the end fight.
You're right, yeah,
But you never have a guy that just is strong and also smart. It's just not a thing that we really get. Besides, maybe...
I mean, in this movie, we saw Arnold in, like, a nice little lab coat and glasses for a little bit, and I thought that was really funny to see.
It was funny, because
like,
Arnold
we're supposed to believe he was some scientist before that?
Like,
no, he wasn't.
I'm supposed to believe Arnold Schwarzenegger was a scientist. He was governor, though, actually. He was governor a few years after this movie came out.
He was writing down campaign slogans.
He was thinking about it, dude. Because he was elected in 2003.
Well, I think another thing that's interesting is, wouldn't this be around the same time that like Uma Thurman is dating or maybe even marrying Ethan? What's his name? Ethan Hawke.
Yeah. I don't know, but
hey,
I
honey,
feel like
just imagine
right
that.
away.
Hey, bye, honey. I'll go see you on set. And she's like, please don't come to set. Please don't come to set.
I think yeah, so Bane I really, really enjoyed. I think just the fact that...
He's a good henchman.
Yeah, he was a good henchman, and they didn't overcomplicate it with him at all because they didn't need to.
Yeah, this was really a two-villain movie, and then Bane's just like a henchman.
This was a two... I think it was a two... Because we had two villains, two heroes, and then at the end, we kind of have Bane, and then we have Batgirl. But... One thing I didn't like about Poison Ivy is that she didn't use... Like, when I think Poison Ivy, I want her to kind of control plants and vines and stuff. And in this movie, I think, like, we kind of touched on it when we were watching it, is that she only... The plants are kind of sentient, I guess, more than she's actually just controlling them.
Yeah.
Like, there's only one instance where the vines actually grab somebody, and she just says, my vines have a crush on you. but she's not like making them do it.
It's basically just like their own free will.
Yeah. And that's fine, but I wanted to see more of it if it was going to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole thing with the plants, she wanted the plants to rule the world, but then Mr. Freeze wanted to freeze it.
And those don't work together.
These are conflicting ideals. I don't think your snake plant is going to survive cold.
She's just going to plant a lot of like winter trees.
Just a lot of evergreens.
Never-ending Christmas.
Mr. Freeze isn't actually a bad guy. He just had a really bad Christmas as a kid. That's all. He just wants to have a nice one. Just once.
Well, speaking of Christmas, do you remember at the beginning when we see like Snow Miser, and he's getting all of his goons in hockey gear to sing along to it, like he's sort of making them a choir. Sing louder!
Sing louder!
Louder, come on, sing, come on. Yes, come on, louder.
It's so, he's in his little polar bear footies and like his robe. It's so cute. He's
totally in pajamas.
And all his henchmen had frozen dinners and their forks were stuck in it, but they were all frozen. And
why were they working for him?
You know.
And you remember when we were seeing the one chase scene, and there's Mr. Freeze, and there's one guy that's really into it, and then there's another henchman who's riding. He's like, I don't know why I'm here.
There was the third henchman. He just looked unsure of himself. He looked scared. That was when they were driving down the hand of that statue.
Yes, he was driving down the hand.
Yeah, and then he was all looking, and then Batman stopped Robin's bike, whatever. But he was just scared. He didn't even. We're not gonna make it, boss. Oh, that guy's name was Frosty. That was his name.
Oh, he was Frosty.
Yeah, that was Frosty.
Yeah, and then what? Arnold loved talking to him. Like he was like, "Come here," and it wasn't so he could like do anything useful. He just needs someone to talk to and explain his plans to.
He's just his buddy.
I've gotten so lonely since my wife. I need someone to tell all of my plans to.
Yeah, he's like, "Come over here." And he talks to him for not even a minute, and he's like, "All right, get the fuck out of here. I got to talk to my wife." And he's like, oh, sure, boss.
Do you remember that one time that he's just watching a video of his wife, and then some guy's like, hey, boss, we need you in here. He freezes him. I hate when they talk during a movie.
It just keeps laughing.
You hired him.
This is your fault. He brought you good information. I think one thing with the freeze gun at the very beginning, the freeze gun, I don't fully understand its physics. So it's a beam, let's say an energy beam or whatever.
Yeah, it
that freezes things. It has enough propulsion apparently
to stop him from falling from space.
like orbit. Yeah, he was almost in. Whatever, he was at like 10,000 feet or something, and he just fell. Also, pulling out these metal wings that were just sick.
It was so cool, but I just went over to Nick and I said, what is ice related about this? And how are metal wings pulling you like this?
He just thought about it. He thought about it earlier.
Wait, how are we forgetting? The surfboards.
Oh my god, the surfboards.
So when they're 30,000 feet in the air, they're like inside of like a bomb that will freeze all of Gotham.
It's like a rocket, basically, yeah.
So Batman's like, okay, we're going to explode this. And then Robin goes, okay, that's cool, but how are we getting down? And he just says, watch this. He pulls out a piece of metal that's shaped like a surfboard, and they
surf the waves down, man. They
surf down the air, and you just see Robin yelling, Cowabunga!
It's so good. It's like Spy Kids 3. It's the immediate thing I thought of when they're surfing in the lava.
And then
it's not cold.
You see them like bring down Mr. Freeze while they're doing that, but then Robin gets off his path or whatever and has to slide down a roof, so he hits with full force his body on a surfboard onto a roof of Gotham and just slides down it like, oh no, my whole body isn't broken right now.
And then he just continues falling to the ground. Like, what was his plan at that point? We never saw him grapple or anything, so he was just, I'm taking this all the way, I guess.
Wait, why? Yeah, why wouldn't he grapple? Especially since every time they use a grapple, it's completely new.
No, they have
never
like
use the same grapple twice.
They all have different grapples. It's it's good branding. If anything, Bruce Wayne, great marketer.
Great marketer.
Fantastic branding on all the stuff. I mean, the Batmobile, Batcave, Robin, just all really good.
Everything has the logo. You don't like the Robin. No, I don't like the Robin logo. You like it. I prefer
I do
the
like
R.
the Robin. I like the Robin logo just because it mirrors the Batman one in
I get
in the
that.
same kind of shape. But one thing I think that we are forgetting is the Bat credit card. The Bat credit card was my favorite part of this movie, and he never leaves the cave without it. It never expires.
And that's just when they're trying to outbid Robin and Batman are trying to outbid each other. Because after she got out of the gorilla suit, Poison Ivy comes down and she's like, "Hey, you can bet yourself for me, and also I'm gonna wear these diamonds." And Batman and Robin just start going like 1 million, 2 million, so that they can like get a date with her. What I'm thinking is, what do people think of the fact that Batman has like $1 million to bet on a date? Like, what are people thinking about that?
I mean, in my head, I was thinking it was just a Bat credit card.
He was never gonna pay it off.
No, it's just to the city of Gotham. The taxpayers will get it.
No,
that's what I'm assuming. Like if he goes to Starbucks or something, it's on them, I guess. You know, he's the protector.
This is the same thing that me and Clark were talking about with that Spider-Man tax. Do you remember when I explained to you that bit?
No, what? Explain the Spider-Man tax.
Well, Clark had a bit going when we were in the car just explaining how all the villains hate him because everything that Spider-Man pays for is gone through the city, which means there's like a 5% sales tax on
everything,
on all goods. And the entire time, Clark would just be yelling in my ear, like a Green Goblin voice, "Can Spider-Man come out to pay?" And it was the dumbest thing ever. But you have just recreated it in Batman and Robin.
You're welcome. The Bat credit card is a mainstay, and I really think, if anything, that should come back to the universe.
If Matt Reeves wasn't a coward, he would bring it into the Batman too.
We've lost our way for so long since the Bat credit card. Why can't we crawl back to salvation? So last thing for this movie, how do we feel about pacing? Because last time with Tetris, we were gawking over how great the pacing was. How do we feel in this movie?
I mean, I don't think there's bad pacing. There's always those moments you have when you're like, okay, we need to have a heartfelt moment with Alfred because he's dying. And it's like, okay, let's show more of Barbara because we have to introduce her. The action scenes never felt like bad pacing because you're always seeing a new thing that's like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. It's awesome.
Yeah, all of the stuff through this movie was over the top, and it was extremely goofy. It wasn't at all. Like, it was... There was a lot of, I guess, like childlike wonder almost with almost all the set design and everything. Even Mr. Freeze's suit had like 50 blue lights on him and he was chromed out. But I think it's cool because it fits everything else he's doing in the movie and everything else around him. So like it's goofy, but it's goofy that it works. And I think one thing that I really hated also when you talk about Alfred is every time they were having a touching moment with Alfred, you would just turn somewhere and there would just be a flashback of when Bruce and Alfred were like younger. Yeah. And it was just every time we saw Alfred, it just, flashback. I know.
I like it just because in these movies we don't really talk about the obvious father-son connection that would have happened with Alfred when when Bruce's parents died. I liked it for that, but I'm thinking... This is supposed to be like the fourth movie. Is this the time that we're supposed to understand that? I thought the moments looked nice, though. It probably just fell out of place in the whole movie.
I think that's what it took me out of what they were talking. It's like, oh, it's Tiny Bruce now. Okay. But I think I agree completely with what you're saying with pacing, where I think all the fights felt completely like warranted whenever they were happening, and it didn't feel like, oh, okay, we're fighting again. It just all made sense. And even down to like the choreography, a lot of the time the choreography made sense within context of the fight, or like what Mr. Freeze would do. Like in the very beginning when Batman and Robin are fighting against Freeze, Batman gets the gun and aims it back at Freeze to freeze him, and he just grabs it and throws Batman like using the gun. And I think that's cool. That makes a lot of sense. And just overall, I think this movie was so over the top that it was great from a comic book standpoint and just feeling fun.
I mean, I'm going to say this movie was a great time for me, but I'm also going to say if somebody said this was the worst movie ever made, I would say, yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. Yeah, it's not cinema by any means.
It just so happens that I'm a really big fan of the worst movies ever made. That's how I am. If it's really bad, I love it.
Yeah, like Moonfall. Moonfall's horrible. Have you seen Moonfall?
I've not seen Moonfall.
Oh my
I'm down
God.
to watch Moonfall.
We should definitely wham Moonfall sometime. It is such a horrible movie. But how How about ratings? What are we gonna think out of 5?
Well, before we get to that, I have one more question for you. Was George Clooney a good Batman? Because this is his first and only time being Batman outside of, spoiler, obviously, The Flash.
Yeah. I think he was I didn't like the Bruce Wayne bits as much, but I like them better than what's the Birdman guy's name? I can never remember his name. No, Birdman.
Oh, Birdman, Michael Keaton.
Yeah, I like his Bruce Wayne a lot better than Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne. Because Michael Keaton just felt he was just quiet and he was all like kind of in himself, and it just I didn't like, there was no billionaire playboy kind of feel to it. Versus George Clooney, I can totally see that. And they were like, Bruce, are you gonna like marry anytime soon? And he was like, I'm not really the marriage type kind of thing, whatever.
Yeah.
I think that was really cool, and I also think his Batman was good.
Wait, why even was that love story in there?
I don't know.
It had no importance.
It was completely shoehorned in.
There's this woman that he has like by his side the whole time, and you see her like every once in a while, and she would go, "When are you gonna marry me? We've been dating for a year," and he's like, "Well, you know, I'm a little bit wild."
It's like maybe 3 or 4 scenes max, and even then, it's like
it's so unimportant.
It's arm candy, and then she's like, "Maybe we should get married." And then she just leaves the movie. That's it.
Yeah, the only reason I can imagine she was in this was just to show the poison ivy effect. Because when she's talking to him, he starts hallucinating poison ivy instead, so sort of showing the effect of like
the poison or whatever.
Her magical stuff she whiffs out of her mouth.
The pheromones.
Yeah, the pheromones. Besides that, there's no point to her. I will agree with you though. The suave on George Clooney works really well with Bruce Wayne, and he's also really good at delivering a Batman, although it's not very expressive. But let's be honest, Batman isn't expressive.
No, even with that much of a cowl too, and just in this time for Batman, he had the full cowl. So like even in the Michael Keaton one, it was the whole thing down to his shoulders. He couldn't even turn his neck.
He couldn't.
So
you made the connection that every time Batman looks up, he has to do sort of like a Gmod thing, where his whole body,
his whole torso has to look up with him. But so I think, and as Batman, like at the end of the movie, he has a very, very serious, like one-on-one, heart-to-heart almost with Mr. Freeze to turn him around, saying like, you know, that Victor Freeze is still in there. He's good. I can take you to Arkham. You can continue your research to save your wife. And I think that bit is really good. I think only the music in it kind of ruined it for me because it was just so light and airy and almost like bubbly.
This music isn't good.
No, besides the Batman, just the Batman theme.
The Batman theme is good.
I really didn't like any of it. And the Mr. Freeze song.
Every time we go into a different club, may be like the charity event, or like when she finds some like a Turkish bath to raid, that had the worst music ever. This soundtrack is bad, and this whole movie, including the soundtrack, especially the soundtrack, remind me of that first live action Scooby-Doo movie on like, what is that, Spook Island?
That was one of them. I don't know, but yeah, that it definitely does have that same, I guess almost canned feel. I guess is the best way to put it. So overall, I'm giving it. I'm thinking for pure like the writing and like cinema wise, I'm giving it a 2. Not even. I'm giving it a 1. But for just pure enjoyment and how I feel about the movie, I'm thinking like a 3 because I really had a lot of fun with the movie, even though it's not great.
I'm gonna probably give it a 3.5 simply because I'm going to be genuine. I really enjoy bad products. If it makes me laugh my ass off like that did, it's going to get a high score because we died laughing so many times, especially when we saw the last fight with Poison Ivy, when Robin fell into like a vat of water. When he's coming out of the water, he completely gets out and he's like gasping for air, but then they just reverse back the footage so he's falling back in the water.
It's just completely, it's not even, they didn't hide it, there's no cut, it's just, oh, it pops out, okay, put it back in the water. It's so bad.
I had to reverse it. I was just so surprised they would do that. It's so obvious.
It's so bad.
Why wouldn't you just have him come out of the water?
If you're not going to watch this movie for anything, at least watch it for the back credit card and that. It's just so good.
Outside of Batman and Robin, we want to talk a little bit about some of the news that's happening in the movie industry, because we're in July of 2023, and there is a lot of stuff that's been happening with movies. Not only are we in a time when there's going to be still so many new blockbusters that are coming out, but we're also having we're having a strike predicament that hasn't happened in 60 years, with both the Writers Guild of America and the Screen Actors Guild going on strike at the same time. And it's just an important time in like cinema history that we want to talk a little bit about, specifically just everything that's happening with negotiations. Once you know that Tom Cruise is on the board talking with both executives and screen actors about a deal regarding AI and stuntmen, you know that stuff has gone down, because Tom Cruise is like, I don't know, he's like the lifeguard for movies. If something's happening that's like going against them, he goes for it.
He always puts himself out there. But I have on my phone here, I got a few other actors like Bob Odenkirk and Kevin Bacon also joined.
Bob Odenkirk has been a part of this protest since like the WGA went on strike.
And also Congressman in California, Adam Schiff, has shown his support a lot, mainly because Kevin Bacon did, so he was like, awesome.
Adam Schiff, yeah, he likes to latch on to stuff like this. He was one of the biggest people about the impeachment of Trump, but obviously being a representative of California, it's very good for him to like be very supportive towards lower class actors, like you see these screen actors and writers who obviously need this contract to be signed that will keep them
employed.
Yeah, keep them really employed, keep them with their rent. And obviously, if you just see, oh yeah, California is still keeping up workers' rights for movies, then you're going to keep Hollywood pretty well centered. It's not going to be going off into other places like, where else? Atlanta? Atlanta has a decent film program.
Yeah, I know, at least right now, like SAG has only joined like pretty recently, right? It wasn't only like a week ago or something? It was
only a week ago, yeah.
But, wow, I lost what the fuck I was saying. So that like all actors, like any showings that they'll have, any like cons or anything is completely on halt right now. And one thing I also saw is that Margot Robbie was making the rounds for the Barbie movie. Yes. And going around, and people were getting mad that she had an Australian accent instead of the Barbie accent, to the point where they were like messaging her on social media is just like, drop the accent. It's just like they don't want her to talk like that. Yeah. And it was while she was on tour, people were saying that the tour got cut short because of the SAG stuff, but they were pissed that she was Australian, that she was talking an Australian accent.
Whose first time finding out that she's Australian is for Barbie?
I have no idea.
And I couldn't believe that the most avid like people who'd attack her is for the Barbie movie, not like any others, not like the Suicide Squad or anything else. Speaking of the red carpet stuff, you actually saw the UK premiere of Oppenheimer. They started right before the strike, like an hour before, and you just saw the entire cast basically leave their own opening because they saw that the strike got confirmed. So you had them all leave, and you just had Christopher Nolan do the whole opening. And that's probably what's going to be happening right about now. It's only going to be directors, because you can't have writers on, and you can't have a cast, and nobody cares about producers. Mm-hmm. Did you see the Haunted Mansion thing?
No, I didn't.
They had their red carpet. They had it at the Haunted Mansion in Disney World, I think, or Disneyland. Yeah. The only person that showed up was the director. So you know what they did? They got Disney cast members on the red carpet. They got Minnie Mouse on the red carpet for Haunted Mansion, which is probably another $100 million movie. Because, Lakeith Stanfield, Owen Wilson, I forgot who else is in it, but those are the big ones.
Yeah, those are the big people.
They're all gone. Oh my gosh.
I think it's, in general, this is pretty scary for like the consumer side, because for the next year, we're just gonna have shit. If we have anything, it's just gonna be garbage, because there's been a writer strike for like months at this point. It's been going on for a while.
Yep.
And so now that also, since SAG has gone into it too, that's just any projects that we have either are gonna have just bad actors and bad writing, or it's just not gonna happen. And anything we have that's in the works is gonna get postponed or just left.
Yeah, Deadpool is completely postponed right now. They were going to film during the writer's strike, even though that meant Ryan Reynolds can do little to no improvisation. But now, with that strike, it's just held off indefinitely. You know how bad it is? You know how bad this strike is? Bill Nye is a SAG member.
Wow, really?
He can't act anymore. Apparently, what he did was considered acting, and he can't do it anymore.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. But I mean, that's cool.
We're gonna see, like we did in 2007 and 2008 when the writer's strike was happening. We're gonna see a large upswing in I guess re-releases. They're putting Yellowstone and they're putting Miss Marvel onto ABC and like CBS because they have no new shows they can do.
Like the Disney Plus show, Miss Marvel?
They're putting the Disney Plus show Miss Marvel on the ABC because they can't build anything new. And you're gonna see, because of this, what happened last time, a giant uptick in reality shows which require no writers and no actors. And let me tell you, it's not good television.
No, but that's pretty interesting.
Love Volcano.
Love Volcano. That's pretty. God, what did you just say? Like the
About Miss Marvel?
Yeah. I think that's actually pretty interesting, because then there is a possibility that we can see a trend of that more
Of streaming heading to cable,
like streaming exclusives moving over to cable. And not that it's gonna be huge, but just that. So cable will maybe get a breath of life in it to something.
Yeah.
Because it would pull away from, hey, buy our streaming service. But then also, if someone sees it and they're like, oh, it's a Disney Plus show, maybe I should get Disney Plus.
I mean, this is going to probably feed both of them in different ways while also hurting them. If you have cable not able to make new content, you're going to have them bring in content from other streaming services. But at the same time, what if that runs dry? Or how long do you think people will really be interested in that? Once cable starts running out of original stuff, people are going to go, let's just see what's on streaming. And that's the whole catalog of everything. So obviously this might hurt cable a lot more than it hurts streaming. It's overall, this thing is going to hurt everybody until they agree to a contract. And I love this statistic. I'm not sure how true it is. I did read it somewhere. The financial goal that they're trying to reach for both things, for both strikes, if you were to get the top 10 largest paid executives in Hollywood and get 5% of their incomes, that would pay it off.
I mean, I saw some video on Twitter at one of those strikes where a guy was saying, like, in 1960 or something, like, the head was making $40,000 a year, or like 40 times more than his smallest guy,
more,
and now he's making 400,000.
Yeah, that was Sean Gunn.
Yeah, that's an insane amount that nobody should be paid that much for, especially at that level. What is that executive doing for the industry besides signing his name on shit?
And then you had Ron Perlman come out with a, God, he's the best. I love Hellboy. He came out with a speech saying, he was talking about how some guy said, some executive who hasn't been disclosed yet said, we're going to keep this strike going until people lose their homes.
Yeah, until people like are evicted and start starving. That was a direct quote.
And Ron Perlman said, there are many ways to lose homes. Saying shit like that is one of them. Like, he was basically saying, if we find out who said this, we're going after him.
Oh, it wasn't even a little. It was a threat. It was a full-on threat. Yeah, and as he should. That's completely valid.
If you're trying to take people's homes away just because you don't want to pay them residuals on streaming, then that might be you being a little greedy. Most people think it's Bob Iger that said that. I don't know exactly why, but he's been the most vocal on interviews with saying he's very disappointed by what the strikers are demanding.
He was saying that people were demanding too much, that it wasn't reasonable. But outside of the strike news, just like little other things. Also, Oppenheimer only took 57 days to shoot.
Incredible.
That's insane.
I'm thinking what would cause that, and I think the main thing is the set. What we've seen from trailers has them all on like the little thing in the desert on the lot where they're all planning this out with their families. I imagine if that's like where they shot most of the movie at,